Look, we don't need another long introduction by Pierce. I know when I've talked too much. I can monitor myself. I'm a self-monitor. I'm aware of my behavior. This is what this show is about. It's about being aware of your behavior, the things that you miss, and you do weird stuff. I don't, look, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. Don't get upset. I don't understand why everybody's so upset right now. Okay, we got off track again. Look, this show, this one's going to be about, what do we call this? Communication, segues, and introspection. Exactly what I was talking about, being aware of yourself. And being sorry, not sorry. Just really not being too ashamed, but being aware of things that you do. We cover a lot of issues in this one. Some of them are a little bit controversial. Let's stop listening to me and get into it. Cue the music.
Heroes of
humility, 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 humility. This is not a charade. This is real. These words you are about to hear are coming from real humans on a mission to save the human race from itself. Buckle up while these delusional heroes of humility, aka HoHs, attempt to right the wrongs in everyday human behavior. Well, this is another episode that we're going to try to record, memorialize, put out there into the ether. I think that we have a few listeners. I've had some feedback. It's really remarkable that we continue to do anything productive, that it's so random and haphazard. Thanks for being there, Red.
You know, I am always here, and I will clear my schedule to achieve nothing, according to your introduction.
Yeah, we don't achieve anything here. We've invited some other buddies today, and
here we are by ourselves.
I'm reluctant to give them a shout out at all because they're so, they just don't get it. You know? And you got to say it slowly because then they wouldn't get that either.
Oh, hell.
That's all right. You know, we'll say prayers for them. We'll send them good vibes.
That's Pierce making friends like usual.
Cool Hand, Beige. I got another buddy that wants to join up with us. He goes by 11. That'll be a cool little addition. So we'll bring him in one of these days. How are you doing, bro?
I am good. I am doing well. How about you?
I'm okay. I've had a rough week, man. Do you want to hear about it?
I don't. Yeah, you know what? Les, please. Please. 'Tis the season.
You know what? That pause. That pause stings, dude. When you ask somebody, do you want to hear about my, and they're like, sure. Let's, and that's not lag, ladies and gentlemen. Sure. That was true, unadulterated, real-time lag from a human response. Yeah. He was not interested. I guess I'll tell you anyway. Yeah. I'm getting a new vehicle. Okay. Look, I have a few problems that occurred this week. I'm just going to cover. How much time do we have? We try to keep the show in under an hour. Does your voice sound as sexy as Pierce's? Oh, we're going to edit that out.
Oh.
My microphone is
tingling in certain places.
I'm not even going to respond to that. I don't know how to respond to that. All right. Look, this week I go to a local gym. It's a little tiny gym hidden away in the recesses of my community. It's like a little building and there's some people there that work there and they keep it up and it's nice, whatever. There has been a change in the order, the chain of command, the people that run this facility. And sometimes kids in the community, I'm not sure if I want to go live in one of those communities where they don't allow kids, but I was looking into it. The problem is I'm not old enough. So how do I avoid the hoodlums that just, I don't know. Most of the kids, they don't hassle or cause any issues, but there are some kids that try to get into the clubhouse. They're not allowed to be in there. When I was a
Hoodlums.
kid, I used to sneak in to the clubhouses in my friends. They lived in neighborhoods with these things, and we would go in, and I remember the chaos, dude, and the things we would get into. Just jumping into the swimming pool without the proper attire, um, and people would get
Oh
thrown. I
yeah.
mean, it was a blast. But now that I am an adult in manhood, I don't appreciate this stuff. So anyway, I go to this gym, and there's a nice gal at the counter. She was new, and so I had to make some small talk, right? You don't just go in, you have to be friendly into society. And that usually involves an exchange of some kind. When you make eye contact, you have to use words. So I used words. She was talking.
How can you give like a general so I can use my brain to draw a visual of how old this gal, as you stated, is?
I will. I can't make you use your brain, but I am going to use my brain to come up with the words and to try to recall what happened. I just said sometimes something just springs into my mind. Okay, you have to have a key card, like a key fob, to get into the clubhouse. I use my key fob, but
Wow.
between using my phone to pause what I was listening to
Oh,
and
top
then
shelf.
open
Yeah.
the door, it was multiple coordinating cerebral activities that were occurring, hand-eye coordination. So you have to swipe the key fob, and then you'll hear the door go,
Your
and then
butler, your butler didn't open it for you?
I didn't have him with me. So I pushed the door open, but I didn't catch it at the right time. So it went, and then I pushed on the door, nothing. And I looked like a dum dum. So she was inside, and she was looking. You can see people. Plus, they have cameras up and stuff. So I did it again, and I pushed, and I timed it wrong again. And now there was a kid behind me. Now the
Oh,
kids, they have to have their own key fob. So I said,
yeah, no piggybacking.
"Hey, what's the magic password, dude?" And he looked at me like, "Why is this human adult talking to me?" Well, I don't know how to respond because I only use my phones for interactions or my Xbox. And I was like, "Dude,
Oh.
I'm sorry, I can't let you in, bud." I got in, I closed the door behind me. Yeah. And I regulate like that, dude. I'm sorry. I know that's an old man
Uh,
thing to do, but these kids, they throw trash everywhere. They just mess up the facility, right? And they not allowed to be in there, so they sneak around, and the lady has to go get into it. And it's an altercation for her. Like, I feel for her. And this was a new girl. So I go up. I made some comment like,
you wanna touch my hair?
"No, you're making it weird, dude. That's yeah, let's I know you're trying to draw
Uh.
attention to my hair, which has a nice luster, and it's usually the topic of conversation. But in this case, that's not what I wasn't going to talk about my hair with this
Okay,
strain.
okay,
She was new. Okay, let's not be too
okay.
weird right off the bat. So I said, first of all, I think I averted a crisis because you were going to have to deal with that punk out there. So you're welcome. But number two, and she kind of there was a small laugh, whatever. It was a courtesy laugh. You do that in a small talk. You're courteous with one another. You pay each other kindnesses with a laugh or a small comment, whatever. I had to get to the other threshold, so we were gonna have an exchange, and I don't mind that. I'm an extroverted person. I like to communicate. I respond to communicative actions, unlike Beige and Coolhand. I talk. When somebody sends me a message, I respond. When somebody make eye contact, I respond in kind. So I digress. We'll have to edit this down. But look, I said to her, so I averted a crisis, and I'm sorry you had to see that mess out there. See, the problem is that you have to time your entry on the door, I told her. I was listening. So I was just kind of making fun of how stupid I was that I didn't get the door open on the first couple of efforts. So she laughed at that. Whatever. It was another courtesy laugh. So anyway, she was cool. But then she started to talk, as somebody does when you say something. And then she went into a story, but I had started to kind of non-verbally take a step in the direction after I swiped. I also have my ID, so I swiped that. This is a
This is
this
a
is a
very high
secure
security,
facility. Yeah.
top secret.
So I swiped my ID, and then she started to say something, and it was of a topic that I realized I wasn't going to be able to continue. I was like mid step. So I was taking,
Oh, you were being
I was,
rude. Okay, I got it.
no, 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 I wasn't being rude, dude. Yeah, come on. So I took a step and I realized as my foot was in midair that I couldn't complete that step because then I would be using nonverbal communication that was contradictory to the invitation she had sent me to continue to talk. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes, I'm writing it down. Okay, go
This
ahead.
is lightning quick, dude. You got to stay with this.
Okay.
So I had to stop. I managed to save my body maneuver. So I turned back
Wow.
about a little bit. It was like a pivot, almost like in a basketball. Like, you know, you're allowed to pivot on one foot, but you can't take step because that would be traveling. I was
Okay, proper
basically,
foot attire. Okay, and
I
the
was,
socks were all compliant.
yeah, if I could just get a word in edgewise,
Okay.
I was just about, I was taking a pivot action so that I didn't travel in the game of a basketball. I didn't travel,
Oh,
but I almost traveled. So I would have got a penalty. She was engaging in more conversation and she asked me a question. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to fully turn back. I can't continue my trajectory, even though I've pivoted just a little bit away. And anyway, this is ridiculous. But these are the things that happen when you're doing small talk with people. And it's usually with somebody you've never met before. Am I right? It's not with your buddy or something. Usually your buddy and I, you know, you guys can just get right to what you got to talk about, like we do in this.
oh, okay,
You know,
okay, okay.
but you have to try. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're being
Oh,
a
shit.
smart alecky.
I was taking a
Um,
step, but I didn't want to continue.
wow. All right. Well, let's hear
Go, yeah.
your. No, you know that was my embarrassing. The thing was, is that she was inviting me into this conversation, and she's a perfectly lovely human being. I could tell. You know, not that that would matter, but sometimes the encounters happen with people who may not be described in that nature,
Oh,
and
well, you
then
know
you've
what?
got it's even harder, right?
I don't think you finished the story though. So she was beginning to talk. You took a step. You just kept on walking. You left her hanging.
No, no, I had to pivot so that I wasn't traveling. And then I had to turn my body again when I realized it was going to be a longer engagement. So I had to turn my bod towards her bod.
Oh,
And then we had to continue the discussion. And I had to, you know, I wasn't getting my workout in at that time, at that moment, you know?
oh,
So
okay.
again, nothing to do with her. She's perfectly nice, but there's a cadence to conversation. When you're trying to segue out of a small talk in interaction, there is a component of cadence where you have to realize when and where. It's like the Kenny Rogers song. You know, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away.
Well, that's what you didn't tell me. How about old this young lady was, or lady, gal, as you described her, because she may not know that song.
You know what? That's a fair assessment, my friend. You're really getting down into the real nitty gritty. Sometimes I do notice that people of different age categories
Ah,
or
generations,
whatever,
yeah.
yeah, they have different colloquial styles of engaging. She was probably in her mid 30s.
Oh, she maybe yeah, she might have missed that song then. Yeah, she may maybe depending on where she grew up, she might have missed that song.
Well, it's not like I was referring to the Kenny Rogers song. I'm just using that as a description to explain what was happening. Sometimes you have to know when to continue what you're doing, and then sometimes you have to know how to segue out of that interaction and keep moving and walk away.
You
And
know, that's a
Kenny
talent.
Rogers made a song about that back in the day.
That's a you know what? If we have time, I'll tell you a quick little. I had something
We're out of
similar.
time for the day. I wanted to thank
Ladies and
everybody
gentlemen,
for
the show will
listening to
begin.
Heroes of Humility. It's been a pleasure. I think I really
Did
got
you
some
tell her
good
to like and
information in.
subscribe as you walked away?
I didn't tell her about the believe it or not, I
You
don't
will
tell
be in it.
everybody about the podcast.
Oh, darn it. At least you were wearing the HOH gear.
I did have some HOH socks on, which you can
Very nice.
check out on our Facebook page. I thought it was funny that we had socks because it's the most anti-advertising technique available. Boy, I sound like an idiot, but you wouldn't put advertisement on socks because nobody would see them. And that's why I thought it was funny. Also, the socks are freaking awesome. They have
Oh.
pictures of participants to the Heroes of Humility website and face and podcast on the socks. So when you wear
Very
them,
nice.
it's you're wearing our faces on your socks. But it also says Heroes of Humility, and it's got like they're very dangerous looking socks, you know.
Wow. But good
Anyway,
quality enough to wear to the gym. I like it.
wow, this is
Look at
what a
this.
mess. What
You
a mess this
think
podcast
of
is.
everything,
This whole session, it's just a
you know?
complete nightmare.
No, talking about an HOH category, and maybe it springs up, and I'm curious to know your opinion because I recently had another interaction kind of similar to what you had, but I don't live in the top shelf community where I have to have key
Oh, come
fobs
on.
and identity cards just to go to inside certain places.
Oh
I went
God.
to the local grocery
YMCA?
store
Oh, sorry.
and was doing some shopping. Had my kid with me. We were just picking up a couple of items just to that we were running low on at the house. So I go in and grab all my stuff, and so you're already kind of getting yourself ready to like, okay, I got to stand in line. I walk up, and there's actually a human being at a register nowadays, which is kind of rare. And two, there was nobody in line. So I was like, oh, cool, this worked out great. So as I walked up, there was a young lady, I'm going to guess probably young 20s, at the register as the cashier, and she had some sort of reflector vest. So it looked like maybe she was a manager or maybe she worked at the pharmacy or something like that at the store. This is a person who's probably been at the company for a little bit, I would think, if she's got that nice vest on or whatever. So I just made a comment and like, oh wow, this is cool. I didn't have to wait in line. That never happens. Kind of a super general statement. Just I was hoping maybe to get a hello or great, oh yeah, that's
Right.
cool. And she just looked at me and just started ringing up my items. And I was just kind of like,
She didn't say anything.
No, she didn't say anything. She just kind of like smirked a half a smirk and kept on scanning. And that's kind of like what you said, the comment that you made when you were talking about your interaction dealing with somebody. I mean, I was dealing with somebody from a younger generation, and I've had this like interactions, like say at a store, if I'm at a clothing store and you're at the mall, and that usually tends to lend itself to hiring employees that really like going to the mall, probably teenager, early 20s. And it's so maybe because we're a different generation, the social interactions always are so awkward when you could tell, like, if it's somebody not from their generation, just to say hi, hello, hey, how's it going today, it's kind of like
Yo,
they
what's
don't know how
up,
to.
dog?
Yeah, they don't know how to answer you, and it's kind of strange. I'm like, am I turning into the old guy now, where if you say hello or give somebody exact change, which I don't do because I always have plastic, card on me, I don't have cash, but I remember being a young guy and running into somebody would give you correct change, and you still had, because they were wanting a certain dollar bill amount back. And I remember our first couple of times it kind of caught me off guard, like what? Because the register didn't give me the exact amount, and so I had to like use my brain to do the math. But in essence, I found myself this last couple times, and maybe even the listeners can probably think of themselves when they've had interactions with some of the younger generation, that it just seems awkward. Like
Look, I
these.
don't want to stigmatize people, but I think you're on to something. There are similarities, but I've also found that people even younger don't all have this issue. This is still something that's reserved to people of all groups. And
Oh, you're right. You're
what
right.
it is, what you've identified is something that hits home to me because I am extroverted. I can communicate with anybody. And I've noticed, and I don't mean to be, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that
Oh,
I recognize the sets when somebody's set in a volleyball match. You set the ball for them to spike it.
we're
You
going
know,
from pivots to setting. Okay, I like this. It's a very
I'm
sport.
feeling very athletic
You
today.
said we're going to talk about sports on this show. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's just that there is a certain amount of coordination in the mind, in your responses and your talking and your nonverbal behavior. When somebody says something to you, especially if you're in customer service, the idea of these people that are being hired that you mentioned, it's probably not just that they like the mall, but they should also be able to feign liking humans. They should be able to like interact with humans. And usually by interacting, you recognize the cues, the time when somebody's invited you into an exchange. And if you're awkward about that or you don't respond, it could be the person's having a bad day, but it's tough when that's part of your job. And part of your job as a customer service person, I would think, is to respond and be congenial or pleasant. And I think pleasant for anybody is usually to respond when somebody says something to them.
You probably get into a certain point that I guess maybe I didn't think about that. I probably too am an extrovert when it comes to my maybe my daily activities and just saying hi, hello. Where there's probably people out there that either just don't want to say hello or because they are in a certain mood, or maybe that is hard for them.
Maybe
Just
they're uncomfortable or they're
yeah, maybe they're
introverted
just
and yeah.
uncomfortable. I still deserve a hello.
Well, you care, but you also I see what you're saying. Like you're trying to make a situation go smooth. And when somebody isn't participating in that same effort, they can't go beyond whatever the discomfort is. I guess there's a small equation that you do quickly in your head. You're wondering and you're doing the math. Okay, how do I segue out of this so that we don't make this more awkward for them if they aren't comfortable engaging or talking, but we still have some business, right? We've got to get through this purchase. We've got to get through getting into the next door of the gym, whatever it is. So, yeah, sometimes, unfortunately, people will take this introversion and this discomfort people have for interacting as an offense, kind of like a rude reaction, when I don't think that's necessarily always the case. And probably most of the time it isn't. People just don't always know how to respond. They don't know how to interact with people, or they're not comfortable for whatever reason. Do you think that's true? Or
Probably don't take a cashier job. I mean, that's just my advice. I hate to be so. I've been a cashier at a back in my younger days. I actually worked at your favorite store, Costco. And for me, teenage years, early 20s, and you're working at Costco and they pay pretty decent. I mean, I guess they strive for a different type of interactions with the customers, but nobody was sitting over me. A manager's not sitting over me watching me with all my interactions. But I would say hello, good morning, or hi, good afternoon. Hey, did you find everything okay? Stuff like that. To me, that's just super general. But I had friends that wouldn't want to be a cashier because they didn't want to have human interactions. That is just, they found it uncomfortable. But they would go to like stocking shelves. Where me, I guess in my mind, I didn't mind human interaction. I sometimes I actually welcome it more than I would just stocking shelves. It's, I don't know, something I like.
here's a couple of observations. I've noticed this too, and I know people. I have acquaintances that are not extroverted. I think even some of our buddies are like this, honestly. I think some people can do it, but it's a strain for them. And I think for some people, they get their energy from interacting with others, but for some people, it's draining. And I think that's a true psychological phenomena that occurs. For people who have challenges with these areas or whatever, it doesn't make them bad, but it means that there's a lot of jobs out there that are geared towards this extroverted ability to exchange readily. And there's probably not jobs for everybody that involve putting tires on or painting walls, but I know what you mean, right? um,
Yeah,
most
I guess.
jobs,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had my bad days too, where
yeah,
you don't feel like entertaining people. But I mean, and on the flip side, maybe are you giving off that, like you said, dynamic of bouncing back this table tennis type of social interaction of this guy is super chatty. I am not going to say anything to get more involved in some
right?
weird conversation. Maybe that's the energy I was giving off. So
Well, I mean, that was one quick small comment, but maybe she was afraid she was going to be talking to you for an hour. I don't think so. I don't think you set that up like that. And there's nothing against Red. I don't always mean to bring his 6'7" size into everything, but sometimes he accidentally can be intimidating. I don't think that was the case because you're very jovial and friendly and pleasant. But
yeah, and there was a whole register in between us. I mean, she
yeah,
could. I'm sure there's probably buttons she
she
can
had
push,
cover.
alerts like underneath the register that
Yeah,
are
she
like,
was
"Oh my
probably.
god!"
My guess is she may have had her finger on the button, just like wait, or she had her phone in the other hand with the 9 and the 1 already dialed.
That's
You know,
yeah, you're
but
probably true.
I
I did
kid,
see
I
police
kid.
cars as I was leaving the store. There were police cars circling the parking lot. Maybe
Yeah,
that
right.
had something to do with.
I think that there is something maybe diagnostic in what's happening, though, that you've identified across the board. And what I mean is that I think a lot of people have gotten used to interacting with their phones, looking at social media so much that it's been a deterrent or an impediment to them having real life human interactions. You see this when you go to a concert or something. Recently, I went with some buddies to see Adam Sandler, and you're not allowed to use your phone at these events. In fact, I've heard at some events they'll actually take everybody's phone and then you have to get it later, like at a coat check type situation. That wasn't the case here, but you were not allowed to have your phone present. But at the end of the deal, Sandler actually invited people to have their phones out because he did a very touching homage to Chris Farley. It involved everybody using their phones and everybody had their lights up. It was pretty cool. But I noticed that people were using their phones and they're missing what's happening. You
Actual,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly. Okay, I
Yeah,
get it.
they
Yeah, yeah,
want to
yeah.
capture the event. And I wonder if communications like that, people have just gotten so used to using emojis or phonetic, whatever symbolic gesture they want to share or a GIF, that's a little different than when you're in having to think on your feet, talking with somebody and just have a pleasant real life interaction. It's much different. And I think maybe if you've noticed this for younger generations, if that can be an overgeneralized observation, maybe if there's any legitimacy to that, maybe that's what's happening. People are just, they've gotten so comfortable with phones or.
No, and I think that's the point. I think you're trying to use kid gloves and try to be delicate with the situation. And I'm just gonna just pull it out and plop it on the table, for lack of better words, and say, I think you're. That's kind of the point that I was making, is that whether it's an generalization or not, but I think quite a few interactions I've had face to face with the younger generations, it just seems like it gets awkward. Like I'm not that old that I can still remember when I was their age, and if an older person asks me something, I can't relate to the daily taskings probably that they have, but I could say hello and recognize them as a person in this world at the same time. As you could tell, it's irritating to me. I've
The
had this
word,
with.
the word, here's just one small observation. When a 6'7" guy he's got a command presence, okay? When he says the
I
word
don't think so.
irritating, oh damn, I'm kidding. I'm putting a little bit of mustard on that, but it's just funny because I've never seen you actually irritated, but the idea that you're saying you're on the fringes of irritation, it's scary. It,
No,
it could
see,
be
and that's
scary to
what I like
somebody.
about this show is we really delve into
The abyss.
hot topics. And I'm sure there's other listeners out there that can relate to maybe
Yeah.
our interactions. I guess I'll remember I working with a certain gentleman that was a boss of ours, and he was definitely not of the younger crowd. If anything, he probably had, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 10 years on me. But if you caught him in the morning walking by in a hallway, I guess my general thing in the morning is just say hello, good morning, when you're passing somebody that's your colleague or hell,
Yeah.
even a boss. If anything, just good morning.
Especially if there's nobody else and it's just you and him,
Yeah,
right? Especially in a confined or close proximity, right?
correct. And then you're saying good morning as you're walking. Like you're saying, you're taking that step. You obviously know that you're just passing by. You're not trying to just stop in the hallway as they're walking towards you and say, hello, good morning. And you're like, oh, great. No, but I remember this person specifically would just kind of grunt, just like, ugh.
Weird.
That was a response to my good morning. And believe you me, I'm not the good morning, really high pitched voice, like trying
Never
to
do
entice.
that again. Yeah. Sorry. No, I
Not
can't
trying.
imagine that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You're just walking by,
Right.
hello, good morning, you know, and then to grunt back, I'm like, does it take that much effort to greet another human being?
No.
To just say hello or good morning back? I guess it just doesn't take that much energy from me. It's just a common courtesy. And again, not like here I was talking about the younger generation. Now I'm putting this on the generation above mine. So I don't want to just pick on the younger generation, but you can tell that some people just find these social interactions so difficult.
Uh,
And I don't. And that's why I say it's irritating and annoying that you can't just greet another human being with a good morning or hello.
Parents, I want to speak to you for just a quick second. When I was a kid, my mom and dad would take me trick or treating. So I wasn't allowed to just go up to the house and say trick or treat and then stick my plastic pumpkin out, right, for the kid. I had to be like, hello, good evening. trick or
Trick or
treat.
treat.
May I have some candy, please? Then, when they took the candy and they put it in my pumpkin, my mom would say, "What do you say? Thank you. Appreciate the treat and no tricks for you
No.
because I'm not allowed to do tricks. I'm only allowed to say please, good evening, and thank you." And if I didn't say that, dude, I got lectured. And it was explained to me that's the way you talk with people. There's polite etiquette involved. Yeah, that was drilled into me. I mean, even from my youngest memories trick or treating, I got talked to. I was very crystal clear to me as I was wearing my plastic mask that I couldn't breathe through, that even if they couldn't hear me, I had to say those things. And I guess when I was a kid, I also remember if there was a really tall guy or somebody older, even as extroverted as I've been since the genesis of who Pierce is, I there was a small like, wow, this old guy is talking to me. But I remember getting over that by like 5 or 6 because that's my memories of trick or treat. And pretty soon I was like, good evening. Hey, trick or treat. Here's my pumpkin. I mean, in other words, I was very like, I didn't make it more awkward for the adult. I realized they were giving me free stuff and I wasn't just going to be like a punk and be like, just stick out my pumpkin and then they put it in and then me turn around and leave. I mean, that's weird, right? For anybody.
Yeah, so are you hinting at that maybe it's something, and this probably could apply to multiple generations, but
Yeah.
just parents, the lack of parenting
Maybe, maybe.
of teaching just kind of like some basic manner skills? Because I know
Yeah.
the same with me. I have a younger child, and we would stand back and let them go up to the door because they thought it was an adventure to ring somebody else's doorbell, and people, most of the time people are opening up the door and like, oh wow, hey, look, it's a cowboy or whatever.
Yeah.
And
It's a
and the
giant
kid,
cowboy.
you're waiting you're waiting for this your kid to say, "Oh, hello, trick or treat, happy Halloween," or something like that. I would told my child, because kids are sometimes shy. I'm like, "Hey, I want you to I want to be able to hear it from the street when you say it, because that's what they're looking for." Like, hello.
Nice.
I mean, if you're giving out candy, you probably give out candy to check out all the costumes, and as you
Yeah.
paid top dollar for this chocolate to hand
Yeah.
out to
After
the
you hand
kids.
out your $5 candy bar, you want a little something in
Yeah,
return, man.
God, say
Otherwise, you're
hello.
getting ripped off.
Yeah, you feel cheated, right?
Yeah.
So, I'd be out like, hey, hey, this next house, I didn't hear it, son. You gotta, hey, say happy Halloween, trick or treat. I
Loud
want to
and
hear it.
proud.
And and then look at them. Don't put your head down. Look the
Right.
person in the eye.
Eye
Say,
contact.
exactly. And I think it's those lessons early on that will benefit that person. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the complete opposite, but that's been my experience. And then, of course, like you said, when you're done with the interaction, you say thank you very much. Thank you. If they want to say have a good night, that's even better. But hey, thank you very much. Bye. Another set of kids come up, but I would always, hey, I didn't hear it. Hey, make sure you say thank you. I'd be yelling it from the street to my kid because I don't know. I guess it's just a polite thing. Maybe it's something that was passed on down from our generation to us, and to be polite and have manners, just because it's not somebody that's your age group that it's okay to interact with. Like with my kid as well, like when you go to a sit down restaurant, I'll have him order for himself. At first he'll have his head down looking at the table. When the person's talking to him, and he'll say, mac and cheese. What did you want? They can't hear you. Hey, say it. Look at me in the eyes and tell him what you want.
That's cool.
I would like mac and cheese, please. Okay, all right, good job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like you said, simple human interaction.
Hmm.
It's just basics to me. I mean,
Unfortunately, that stuff does evolve into adulthood because if you learn it early on and it becomes second nature, it's going to help you in job interviews. Even if you're interviewing for an introverted job that allows you to do something where you don't have to interact with other people a lot, if you go into the interview, even if they don't have social skills and you do, they're going to recognize it. Everybody can recognize when somebody is making eye contact, responding appropriately, reacting quick enough. I think that there's a little bit overrated thought on how quick they did a study. My major was in this social and behavioral sciences.
oh
So
wow.
well, I don't want to, yeah, let's
Is that
Anyway, I'm gonna say.
certificates hanging behind you? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll put my diploma on Heroes of Humility website and the Facebook page. No, but look, I'm a learned individual in these topics we're discussing. Humble brag. So when you interact with people, they can understand these things, even if they struggle with it themselves. It's uncomfortable when you're sitting in a room listening to somebody give a speech if the person's uncomfortable. So usually what happens is that people want to be comfortable. So they're actually inherently rooting for the person that has to get up and talk, because for a lot of people, this is a huge fear. It's supposed to be up there with like one of the most stressful situations, such as buying a house, getting married. But this is like, I've saw some statistics on this when I was in college about how this is one of the biggest fears people have. But, when people interact, they actually want to be comfortable. So they're no different than you. You've heard people say that when you get up in front of a room and you have to talk, imagine people in their briefs or whatever. It's just to try to make it more comfortable. It's so that you're not so nerved and feeling like you're different than the people in the audience, because you're not. The only difference is that you're standing up, they're sitting down, and they're looking at you, and you're the one that's expected to talk. Those seem like a lot of differences, but they shouldn't be. They're just be like you interacting with one person. So if you can kind of minimize it like that for those people that have those struggles, I think that helps. But you got to be able to recognize certain colloquial, kind of conventional things that are probably requisite in our interactions, how to behave in a way that makes people less uncomfortable. And if you can do that, especially in an interview, you're probably going to have a good shot at the job. And what the stuff you're teaching your son that you were talking about, I had the same experiences, with my parents. So maybe that helps at an early age if your parents show you how to look people in the eye. If you go into the military, if you work at certain government positions, I'm sure this isn't the case for people who have interacted with all government employees. I mean, but
The DMV? Are you
I
talking
was
about
just
the
thinking that too.
DMV?
Yeah, the DMV.
Yeah.
But what? Certainly in the military. Look, when I was a kid and I was playing football, I saw my coach a few years ago, and I thanked him for a lot of the memories and the stuff that he taught me, because it helped me. And one of the things is when he said, when he was up in front of us, he says, first, don't come to this field if you're not prepared to be better every day, because none of us are too good. We can always practice and get better. The second thing is when I'm up here and talking, everybody should be looking at me. They should be listening to me with their eyes. And man, my coach, he was good in that sense. He taught us to be disciplined. And part of discipline was making eye contact and using appropriate nonverbal behavior in your interactions, not just how you respond, but you're paying somebody the courtesy of making eye contact and engaging them as they're speaking. And this is just not something that probably is innate for everybody, or they haven't been taught.
No, and to be honest with you, and you think back to that age, and you can most listeners can remember when you were a teenager in high school, and your parents are telling you something to do or to be better this or that, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. They're giving me some more crap again. I got to listen to it. But a coach, probably somebody who or hold a little higher. It's not your parents, and when they tell you something like that, you're like, oh, you probably, as a teenager, probably listened to that more than you did your parents nagging you about the everyday please and yes and thank yous. So, and I like that. I mean, I think that's pretty cool that the coach would, hey, look at me in my eyes when I'm talking. And I'm sure he gave the same respect back if somebody else was talking, if a player was asking a question or something like that. In all honesty, I can share a little bit about my own interaction. My son is taking jujitsu classes. And one of the things I like about it is that they all have to stand. And when the instructor's greeting them in the first thing part of their session, they all have to stand there. And if they're wiggling around, if they're moving, he tells them, hey, is something wrong? Do you need to use the bathroom?
He calls them out on it right away.
Oh, correct. And It's because to him, it's either it's something emergent right now that you can't listen because your body language is not listening. That okay, you must have to go to the bathroom because you're giving me the respect because I'm talking, and in turn, the students are asking a question of him like, "Hey, can you show me this move?" Or "Hey, he's quiet, he's looking at them, looking at their eyes, and listening, and saying, "Okay, I will demonstrate," and he responds back clearly to them. So it's a very good one-on-one interaction. But at all, if the students are got the wiggles and are moving around, he's like, "Hey, wait a second, is something going on?" He addresses them right away, and of course it's in a crowd, and so they're like, "Oh." Or somebody's talking while he's talking. Oh, he gets on them. What are you guys talking about? What's more important than what we're doing now? Your parents pay a lot of money for you to be here. If you're talking, you can't listen to what's being said.
Yeah, I'd
And
like to picture this guy in front of the room too with a pair of those bulky pants like the guy that wore in Napoleon Dynamite, saying, to the kids, look, if you don't make eye contact, you don't want a roundhouse to the face with a pair of these pants on, dude.
no, that he demonstrates the moves, and so the kids, of course, idolize his techniques and his skill level. So when he says something, it's not just
Yeah, he's got cred.
crap. Yeah, they look up to him. So like your
Mhm.
coach, you probably like, oh, you held him at higher regard because he's teaching you his knowledge about football. And so, wow, this guy has something I want, subconsciously. So I'm gonna listen to him and pay him the respect that he wants. Here we are delving super depth into this conversation and
We've gotten
solving.
so deep, dude.
We've gone
It's
very deep.
profound.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes if you reach into the intellectual recesses of Heroes of Humility, you might find a nugget, just a small granular benefit, like a benefit to society, a benefit to a few people, maybe.
Yeah, I have
Mm,
learned nothing.
yeah.
But I have vented and maybe I feel better. There you go. Thank you. Thank you.
The other thing I did this week, dude, is the last couple weeks actually, it's been an ongoing life thing really for me, is that I find when I have too much time, I will go down the rabbit's hole of buying the most useless and frivolous stuff. And I don't like the feeling of buyer's remorse, but I actually, wow, this is going to be, I'm not sure this should be left in the show, but I'm going to say a very guilty, we
Guilty.
used to do guilty pleasures on the show. This would probably fall back into that category. To buy a Magnum PI shirt, for anybody that remembers that show, Magnum PI played by Tom Selleck, probably back in the mid 80s, to wear a Magnum PI shirt, $70, okay, to find a replica.
Oh, wait,
To
wait, wait, wait. So
buy,
this was a replica. This wasn't just a
well,
Hawaiian shirt at the
no, they
mall.
still sell, but it's the same exact style that he
Print.
wore in the
Oh,
show,
okay.
okay?
Okay, okay.
To find a shirt like that, $70. To find and purchase at auction the Ferrari that he drove in that show, probably between 60 to 80,000. To look like Magnum PI, priceless, dude. For like, even for just Halloween or whatever. I sent this to my buddy and I realized, what am I doing? And I really wasn't going to buy a Ferrari or buy one of these shirts. But after like 5 minutes, I was like, what? Yeah. I don't know if you have any stuff like that you buy, but I sit in a room with stuff like that. And I'm not so sure it's good, man. Sometimes it's good because I think it gives you a little joy. I
Well,
also
looking behind you, you have not just a little joy, you have a lot of joy
I
or a
have
big problem. One of the two. You have a lot of joy or a very big problem.
probably both. I have like 3 Darth Vader helmets. Those are panty droppers, dude. Those are panty droppers. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
told
no
my
comment, no comment.
Well, look, I'll tell that's going to be cut it out. That's going to be cutted it out. I don't know if you can see
Oh,
this.
so that is
Oh,
that what you're asking me? What is my most recent buyer's remorse
yeah.
purchase? I know myself. I've probably bought a couple pairs of shoes that it was impulse purchase. You're walking by or you see something and you're like, first off, I'm impressed that they actually have my size.
Wow, I was going to say what size? What
and
size do you wear, dude?
size 14, and
And
it's
you found these in a store?
yeah,
In
I
a brick
remember
and
one of the
mortar?
times yeah, in a brick and mortar, and I found the store.
Wow.
It's not that incredibly big, I mean, in comparison to
A
some other
14?
shoes. Yeah, but most stores don't have it, at least nowadays, especially with this
That's
all this
big, dude.
online shopping.
Yeah.
But I'd be walking and, first off, I think that's probably what would get me is they actually had my size, so I was like, "Oh, shoot, I've gotta have these
Yeah.
shoes."
Even if they're clown shoes, you should buy them because they're size 14s and you don't walk away from that. You don't walk away from that, dude.
And I think that's what gets me is I buy them and you try them on, you're like, "Oh, they're not bad." And maybe I think I was there by myself. So I didn't have like a friend or, family member to go, "Those are hideous."
Right. Those
And
are clown shoes, dude. Don't buy them. Yeah. Just kidding. I'm sorry, guys. I get to poke fun at Red's size because he's 6'7" and he's walked through life dominating, decimating everything within his
no, hey,
sector.
well, I will tell you, I'm only 6'5". I'm not 6'7",
Okay.
6'5".
Sorry.
And 'cause
2 inches.
I'm trying to I don't know why. I like to paint the picture in my mind because, not we're talking over audio now, so people can't see us. So maybe it helps paint the picture as they're driving to work or driving back home or whatever have you, however they listen. That, I see this purchase, I really gotta bought it, and I get home and then you try it on in front of your loved ones or, you wear it to work and then people are like, "What the F is he wearing?" And then so all your joy, it just
Ah,
falls away,
screw those guys, dude.
and a solid tear will come down my cheek.
Damn. The audience driving, they can't even drive right now if they're in the
Needless to say,
cars
those
because
turn
they
into
can't
the,
see through their tears.
home, landscaping shoes or the next painting shoes that you have. Yeah, that's
Ouch.
probably my latest buyer's remorse.
You want to speak about a materialistic shame? I was in Costco. Okay, I took my Trans Am to Costco and it was a little bit late. So when I went in, the sun was setting and I feel bad, but my car was, it was so clean and pristine. I had just washed it and polished it like a week before that. I don't always take it out, but I took it to the store and I park far. I don't. I stay away from the rogue carts and the people that open their door like there's a fire. So when I see people open their car door, I want to see them do it with some kind of grace, tact, diplomacy, and not like some caveman. And so that doesn't always happen. So I park far for obvious. Look, everybody knows that there's some people that just like to park far, and I don't mind walking. I
No,
always see
see, and
people.
that's like I get what you're saying because I've had the same issue where you're like, okay, you park on a row and you purposely, maybe say the first three spots are taken and you got a long row at Costco and the first three spots are taken. So you're parking on the complete opposite end, purposely, away from the other cars. So, and for the most part, people are just looking for convenience. I want to park the closest spot available so I can closest to the store so I have to walk less. Where people like you or me will actually park further away to prevent any damage or hey, you know what, me, I'm a big guy, I like to open the door all the way up to get my big old feet in the car, and I
Mhm.
don't want somebody like sitting there waiting for me like, okay, hey, I'm trying to pull in next to me as you're loading your groceries into the car. So you know what, I
Right.
have to apologize. I cut
No, that's all right.
I cut him off. We cut poor 50 cal
Dude,
off.
it's all right. As much as I talk, dude, I should learn and practice my listening skills. All right. I was just saying that I was in the parking lot. I got out, and the way the light was hitting my 1979.
Wow,
I'm
this
sorry,
sounds
this is
sultry.
ridiculous, but
This
I'll
is very
just say
sultry.
I've spent 2 years restoring this classic car. And when I got out, the light was hitting it, and I took a little picture.
A
And
little, or was this a photo session?
I only took one picture before I went in. So then I went in, and when I came out, the lights in the parking lot, because the sun had set, were now hitting it in a magical way. Like it was. Speaking of getting a little misty, it would make you misty, man. It'll make you. It would make a tear just kind of precipitate. But I was looking at it, and people are nice. They'll come over and say something, and it's neat to see the joy that it brings people. But at the end of the day, it's still just a car. I'm sorry. I love it. It's hard for me to say that, but to be really sincere and honest, to try to, when you get too wrapped up in materialistic things, you're going to be unhappy, right? This is obvious, but so it's not good to do that. And sometimes to do some self introspection about this because, and this is how it happened to me, and it was embarrassing. So the light was glistening off the silver shimmer paint job of my Trans Am. It's got red lights in it and stuff, and I put the lights on. It's ridiculous. I got out, I took a picture of my car, and I looked at the picture later, and there was a lady sitting in a truck about two parking spots over, again, because I was far out. And we were both in another zip code, well away from the structure of Costco. So it was odd that somebody was parked that far out there. And the picture is hilarious because she's looking through she had to take her trifocals down, and she's looking through out the top of her rims of her glasses, and she's looking at this complete insane lunatic taking pictures of his own car. And I was just thinking, wow, I've struck an all-time rock bottom where I can't even drive to the store without looking at this thing. And I was a little it was ridiculous, but I made me think a little bit about my materialistic, the joys I get, and thinking, geez, it's ridiculous sometimes. You got to, because there's more worthwhile investments in the world, there's people that are struggling. And I don't want to go into Heroes of Humility tries to make people smile once in a while. To be honest, sometimes you got to think about that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, but I don't think, and I think that's something that we're getting into nowadays is having to apologize for who we are. I mean, let's get this real. You've wanted this car and you've had this dream of owning a Trans Am from the 80s. I mean, we would kid with you at work before you even bought this about jamming out to a White Snake 8-track in your Trans Am with the T-tops
Here I
down.
go again on my own.
And to me, you shouldn't have to apologize for that because you've worked hard for it. This is something you like, you enjoy, you sacrificed. You went, I know, because I went there, was there with you on some of the adventures.
Sorry, not sorry.
Exactly. Be yourself unapologetically. Like you worked hard for it. This wasn't just given to you. You didn't win the lottery. You worked hard for it, and now you're reaping the benefits of what you worked hard for. I guess I don't understand. Are people out there that see a nice car in a parking lot in their minds. I want to key it. I want to spit on
Gosh.
it. I want to
Yeah.
run my shopping cart into
And
it.
just so anybody listening knows, there are surveillance items in this Trans Am, and there's proximity alarms. So please, I would hate to think that happens, but you're probably right, unfortunately, Red. And so just so the listening audience knows, there is consequences. In fact, I did find some kids on the camera I have in my car. One time
They're getting too close.
they came too close to the car, and I caught it on
Oh.
video, and the video allowed me to see the pores on their face. So I very easily,
Fog pores, yes.
and I knew where I was parked, so I knew what school they had been to. And
Oh,
man, I'll tell you, I cut them a break that time, but I almost took the video to the school, and it would have been very easy, but I didn't. I tried to be cool. There was no harm done to the exterior aesthetics. I've got so much polish and armor on the car that hopefully, anybody who accidentally touches it would be impervious to that. But it's, again, people should just be polite and recognize. And I see what you're saying, but sometimes when I buy my third Darth Vader helmet or something else from my Trans Am, I think, well, let me at least throw a little something to this other cause, because that'll minimize my own guilt, and then I'll be able to.
but I'm gonna say something here. Like, let's just get this out on the table here, and let's just say,
Oh, damn. Here we
does it
go.
does it make you feel better to make a donation, or is it really benefiting somebody else? Because let's
Both,
just,
hopefully.
you know, uh, are we? Well, I guess my point that I'm getting to is that we selfishly are involved in thinking, you know what? I feel guilty for enjoying this guilty pleasure that I really like, owning a car, a vintage car. And, people probably don't realize all the sacrifices that you have to make owning a vintage car. Of You're not going to just jump in it and just drive across country. Even if you felt the car was reliable enough to do that, all the damage, the road grit, and blah blah blah, and all this other stuff, you wouldn't want to damage it. So there's consequences also to owning a vintage car that the everyday person doesn't have to deal with. You jump in your car and just go somewhere, and hell, if you get into an accident, you have all these safety features and airbags and blind spot monitors, and an old vintage car that doesn't have that. So, I guess I just don't understand. Like, if you work hard and well enough and you can afford a nice house and fancy yard, am I thinking, God, this guy, look at, he's trying to showboat. Let me just drive my car up on his perfectly manicured grass and just spin out it makes me feel good. I
Yeah.
guess I don't get that. I mean, to me, I would
Right.
figure this person worked hard for it. Their manicure yard looks great. I can appreciate the hard work that goes into it. I don't know. I've never been that type of person just to crap on something. I mean, we've all run into people that showboat, like they'll be revving their car up in a parking lot, and it's some kid with a noisy muffler, and you're just kind of like, oh, whatever. You just keep on walking.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't bother me as bad as other people, like to go physically damage somebody else's prized possession.
Yeah, I know when people get out of their cars, they don't seem to, well, not all people, but there's definitely sample of people that don't seem to be concerned with that. Even if it's it's not a fancy ride or whatever. As soon as you park, I'm like, okay, how close am I to the next car? Can I park there? Am I going to hit you just think about that stuff. And then, but some people don't always recognize. And yeah, there's some cars that when they get hit, it's not a very easy repair. And I'm kind of a caretaker for this vehicle. It belongs to me. I financed it. I've restored it. Look, I think it's great that we have another mode or technology that allows us to be electric, but I've put a new motor in this thing that's more efficient. It burns gasoline in a much cleaner way. And there would be a lot of pollution made to create the batteries that would be needed to make this car electric, completely electric, and costs and everything like that. It would take that money that could go to other places. So, all that stuff still entails cost. And I don't want to get into the whole thing about electric versus gas because there are benefits, especially when you're restoring a classic ride, because then
No,
it's
I
going to
think I
accumulate
think
more
if you had
waste and it's going to be a
windmills,
junkyard.
I think if you had windmills on your car, that probably distract from the beauty of it.
You can't put a windmill on a Trans Am playing White Snake or Def Leppard or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, let's not go down that road. I mean, best wishes to everybody who has a Tesla and a Trans Am, but whatever, it's fine. I sometimes just think about the things I buy, and I think it's okay sometimes to be a little reflective, about being too gluttonous. I think you can overdo anything, and that's where I had to kind of look at myself when I saw that lady looking down through her glasses in a very kind of fascinating manner. She thought, what am I seeing? What is this guy? I felt like she was just about to call 911 but she was trying to process what she was seeing. And I was just taking a picture of my car, but it was probably a little odd
Okay, well,
looking.
let me ask you this question. Kind of goes along the same lines, but a friend of mine brought this up and recently because he had just recently moved to our city from a smaller city, and so now he's going to the gym, the same company gym that he gone to in a smaller city. Now he's coming to ours in the larger city, and one of the things he found that was so much more awkward is he goes, I'm working out at the gym, and he goes, it doesn't matter if it's a female or a male, he'll notice that they're filming themselves as they're working out. And when they're working out, they are, maybe it's a tripod or bipod, they'll have their phone on, lifting weights or whatever to engage. I don't know, maybe they're a professional fitness Instagram connoisseur, and they're filming these for their own followers to. But he goes, the first time I kind of just blew it off. It was kind of like, oh, yeah, like maybe they're personal trainer, so they're making a video for some people. And so he kind of was like, okay, whatever. And then he keeps seeing it more and more and more where, yeah, again, it's not just females, it's males that are filming themselves, and it doesn't look like they're personal trainer. They just make videos of themselves. And he's like, I found this so weird because, you're trying to go to the next machine or get the next set of weights. And do I walk across their video? Do I go way around? Like, what kind of is the etiquette
Do you
for
want to be in their
in the
video?
video? Yeah. Are my shorts at the right length?
Right.
How do the guns look? Did I pump them up first before I go into the
And
video?
you said he came from a bigger city or
No,
a different.
reverse. He came from a smaller city to the big city,
Oh,
and
okay.
but that was one of the things that he noticed was people filming themselves at the gym, like to the point where it wasn't just like, oh, hey, check this out, I'm doing a set. It was like they have
Wow.
equipment there to help them, like again, a tripod or bipod to hold up their phone or
Oh,
a camera,
geez.
or they're like putting their phone on the opposing equipment to film themselves
Oh,
on another set
wow.
of equipment. So it's like, wait, their phone's on it, so no one else can use it, and you don't want
Out
to
of
be rude because
control.
you're also being recorded. So he's like, yeah, it's kind of different. I haven't run into that. I remember sitting at a stoplight, and you're just sitting there waiting there for your stoplight to come, and I glanced over at the car next to me, and there's two young girls sitting in the back seats, and I think it was their parents or grandparents in the front seats. And these girls are just constantly, you can tell they're taking selfies because they have their phone in front of their face, and they're like turning one side back to the other side, and we're at the street light, and it wasn't just one or two, like it was constant. First off, and it kind of always makes you wonder, are they sending these many out, or I mean, are these to be viewed, or kind of like you said at the Adam Sandler event, where people video certain things and you're kind of like, are they ever really gonna view these? Are they getting good pictures? I mean, what great pictures or selfies are you getting in the backseat of a car? I mean, I don't know who's looking at all this stuff. I found myself asking that at different times, like, I don't know, maybe I guess I'm not that photogenic.
Yeah, it's weird. I've seen that. I've seen what you describe. I haven't been at the gym in a while because I go to this little thing nearby where we have some equipment at the clubhouse. But I do have a membership, and every time I go to the gym, I see something weird. Every time. It's not like I'm gonna react to it, but you can't help but have a human reaction when you see something very odd happening in front of you, and it just distracts. It's distracting whatever it is. How can you concentrate on set of whatever you're doing when there's somebody next to you doing something very aberrant? It's like, how do you, it's a distraction
No,
sometimes. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
don't get me wrong. I've seen videos on social media of people filming, surreptitiously, people doing funny exercises like on the cable machine, like
Yeah.
say doing hip thrusters on the cable machine.
Using the machine
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, using the machine wrong. Those are actually quite funny, but that person was filming that person without them knowing. So that was one of the things that, talking about the social things that we may have to get used to nowadays, is that people are filming themselves where places we didn't think they would be. That same friend told me, he goes, it's kind of weird too. You'll go into the locker rooms, the gym locker rooms, and there'll be a dude, without a shirt on, turning certain ways, taking pictures in the mirror, and it's just kind of like, are you are you walking from the showers back to the locker during one of this guy's
Oh,
pictures?
no.
Or I mean, maybe it's just a complete, like, he's just doing it for
We had a whole show that talked about gym etiquette and some with a weirdness, but I knew it would creep up again because it's so pervasive. And it's kind of interesting that you bring that up because the last time I was in the gym, I remember they had a sign up that said no phone use in the locker room. And I was thinking, wow, that they put that up because it's happened. And yeah, clearly the scenario that could break sideways is that somebody is recording somebody else in his birthday suit.
yeah.
And it's probably inadvertent, but because you're recording your glam muscles. I don't know what, it's just, it's goofy, dude.
But maybe it's I guess
I don't want to judge too
some
harshly,
of my
but
point is that, like, what is that, because we're kind of both car people. Is that the same? Are we reacting different because we aren't,
oh,
say, gym muscle heads, to where, oh
yeah,
wait, this is
there I
the
was.
perfect light,
Yeah.
and now my muscles glisten
Yeah.
differently now, and I'm really, maybe we're not understanding it. Maybe that's
That's the
what it is.
key. That's the key right there that you made, is that when you are thinking that somebody else is doing something weird, if you look far enough into your own behavior, you might find that you yourself are sometimes a culprit of similar mistakes or similar oddities. So sometimes it's good to have a laugh at it, because guess what? It'll help you laugh at yourself a little bit. I mean, when I saw this picture I took of my car and I could see in the distance the lady looking at me, I mean, it cracks me up. I'm like, you have to laugh at yourself, because you realize what an idiot. I'm standing in the Costco parking lot taking a picture of my own car. But I enjoyed showing it to my family and some friends. I don't know. You're right, dude.
Maybe it's the same thing. You know what? I feel really good in my heart about what we've talked about today, and it's almost like an episode of Dukes of Hazzard, to where
Ooh,
you get all this enjoyment, you see all this car chasing going on, jumping over stuff, but at the end of the episode,
there's a
you get a
beautiful
good
moral lesson.
lesson. Exactly, and I think today we've done that.
Dude, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, it's a little bit, it's almost stuck in my throat.
I think I feel a tear building up in my eye.
Yeah, you're kind of a wussy. Just kidding, dude. This has been a real good sesh, man. I appreciate you, bro. And we'll get together and do it soon. I hope that the listening audience got a little something out of this and made somebody smile. Here's of Humility is a show about social etiquette, behavior, and our observations. And we'll have our buddies come on. Check us out on Facebook. We have a website. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the algorithms. We pay for this ourselves just so, because I kind of like to listen to a podcast without a lot of commercials, less marketing in their lives. There's just so much. You can't watch or do anything without having to watch a lot of commercials or listen to a lot of commercials these days. So be safe. What do you think, Red?
I think that was very well said. I can't even add.
Take care, guys. Stay safe. Be kind.